Imagine two people who start with exactly the same financial situation. Both are 32 years old. Both earn $80,000 per year. Both have $70,000 in savings. Both live in the same city. And both are considering the same 3-bedroom home. 20 years later, one has hundreds of thousands of dollars in home equity. The other has built an investment portfolio worth well over $500,000. So who made the better financial decision? Most rent versus buy discussions never answer that question honestly. Homeownership advocates point to rising property values and declare buying the obvious winner. Renting advocates highlight stock market returns and flexibility while ignoring decades of rent increases. Both sides leave out important numbers. Today we're looking at the complete financial picture. That means including the $70,000 down payment, closing costs, mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, investment returns, rent increases, opportunity costs, selling expenses, everything. By the end, you'll know exactly when buying wins, when renting wins, and why the phrase, "rent is throwing money away," is often misunderstood. Let's begin. Jake and Marcus are both 32 years old. They each earn $80,000 annually and have saved $70,000. A 3-bedroom home in their city costs $350,000. Jake buys it. Marcus keeps renting. From this moment forward, their financial paths separate. Jake uses his entire $70,000 savings as a 20% down payment. Because he reaches the 20% threshold, he avoids private mortgage insurance. He finances the remaining balance with a 30-year mortgage at 7%. His monthly principal and interest payment is about $1,863. But that's only part of the cost. He also pays $350 per month in property taxes, $150 per month in homeowner's insurance, $290 per month for maintenance. That brings his total monthly housing cost to $2,653. Now let's look at Marcus. He rents a similar 3-bedroom home for $2,000 per month. Compared to Jake, he's spending $653 less every month. Instead of making a down payment, Marcus invests the entire $70,000 into a broad stock market index fund. He also invests the extra $653 each month. At first glance, renting appears to have a major advantage. But there's more to the story. One of the most overlooked costs of buying is closing costs. When Jake purchases his $350,000 home, he must pay lender fees, title costs, prepaid taxes, and other charges. These typically total between 2% and 5% of the purchase price. That's roughly $7,000 to $18,000. Suddenly, Jake's upfront cost isn't just $70,000. It's closer to $82,000 to $88,000. Before building wealth, he first has to recover those expenses. Now let's address one of the biggest misconceptions in personal finance. Many people assume a mortgage payment automatically builds equity. In reality, most of the early payment goes toward interest. During the first month of Jake's mortgage, about $1,633 goes to interest. Only about $230 reduces the loan balance. Add property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and Jake is spending roughly $2,623 every month. That creates no equity at all. Only $230 increases ownership. That's why saying, "rent is throwing money away," can be misleading. During the early years of a mortgage, a large portion of ownership costs disappear just like rent. Fast forward 3 years. Jake has spent approximately $95,500 on housing. Out of that total, only about $8,300 has reduced the mortgage principal. His remaining loan balance is roughly $271,700. Assuming the home appreciates at 3% to 4% annually, its value rises from $350,000 to somewhere between $383,000 and $396,000. After subtracting the mortgage balance, Jake's equity sits between approximately $111,000 and $124,000. That's real wealth. but it isn't liquid. To access it, Jake would need to sell the property or borrow against it. Along the way, he also encounters normal homeowner expenses. A water heater replacement costs $300. A wall repair costs another $400. Nothing major, but reminders that homeownership always comes with maintenance. Meanwhile, Marcus has been investing. His original $70,000 grows to roughly $93,000 after 3 years. The extra $653 he invests each month adds another $27,000 or so. As a result, Marcus builds an investment portfolio worth approximately $120,000. And that's where things get interesting. Jake has more home equity. Marcus has more liquid wealth. If Marcus needs cash tomorrow, he can sell investments in minutes. Jake's wealth is tied up inside his house. Neither strategy is automatically better. They're simply building wealth in different ways. And over the next several years, that difference becomes even more dramatic. Before we jump to year 10, year 20, and year 30, we need to talk about the expenses that most rent versus buy debates ignore. These costs rarely appear in thumbnails, social media arguments, or sales presentations. But they can completely change the outcome. Transaction costs. When Jake eventually sells his home, he won't keep every dollar. Most homeowners pay real estate commissions and closing costs when selling. Typically, that's about 5% to 6% of the home's value. If Jake sells a house worth $500,000, roughly $25,000 to $30,000 disappears before he gets paid. That means appreciation must first overcome those costs before the investment becomes truly profitable. This is why short-term homeownership often performs worse than people expect. Property taxes. Jake currently pays about $350 per month in property taxes. As the home's value rises from $350,000 toward $500,000 and beyond, tax assessments often rise too. While his mortgage payment stays fixed, parts of his housing costs continue increasing. Maintenance costs. This is where many homeownership calculations become unrealistic. Some years are cheap. Then suddenly, roof replacement, $9,000. HVAC replacement, $7,500. Foundation repair, $4,000. Major plumbing issues, thousands more. These aren't rare events. They're part of owning a home. The question isn't if they'll happen. It's when. Now let's discuss the concept most people ignore. Opportunity cost. Jake used his $70,000 as a down payment. That built home equity. But it also meant giving up another opportunity. If Marcus invested that same $70,000 into a diversified stock index earning roughly 10% annually, after 20 years it could grow to approximately $470,000. That's the power of compounding. This doesn't automatically mean renting is better. It simply means every financial decision involves trade-offs. Jake chose homeownership. Marcus chose investing. An honest comparison must evaluate both. 10 years later, both men are 42. Jake. Assuming 3% to 4% annual appreciation. Home value. $483,000 to $500,000. Remaining mortgage. $246,000. Home equity. $237,000 to $254,000. That's a substantial increase in net worth. But during those 10 years, Jake likely spent around $30,000 to $40,000 on maintenance, repairs, and improvements. Homeownership built equity, but it wasn't cheap. Marcus. His original $70,000 investment grows to approximately $181,000. Meanwhile, he consistently invested the housing cost difference. His average monthly contribution works out to roughly $580 per month. Those investments add approximately $110,000 to his portfolio. Total investment wealth, $291,000. The result. Jake's equity, about $245,000. Marcus's portfolio, about $291,000. Marcus is actually ahead. Not by much, but he is ahead. However, something important is happening. His rent has climbed to approximately $2,690 per month. Jake's principal and interest payment remains $1,863 per month. The gap is shrinking. 20 years later, both men are 52. Jake. Home value: $670,000 to $700,000. Mortgage balance: about $188,000. Home equity: $482,000 to $512,000. Roughly $500,000 in equity. Maintenance over 20 years likely totals $55,000 to $75,000. Despite those costs, equity continues growing. Marcus. After 2 decades of investing and compounding. Portfolio value: $550,000 to $580,000. Once again, Marcus holds a slight advantage. But there's a catch. His rent has climbed to approximately $3,600 per month. And it keeps increasing. Meanwhile, Jake still benefits from the mortgage he locked in 20 years earlier. The renter-investor strategy still works. But the advantage is getting smaller. Year 30, everything changes. This is where the story changes dramatically. Jake's mortgage is gone. He owns the house outright. Estimated property value: $850,000 to $950,000. Potentially close to $1 million. His monthly housing costs now consist mainly of property taxes, insurance, maintenance. Combined, $900 to $1,100 per month. Meanwhile, Marcus faces $4,700 to $5,000 monthly rent. And unlike a mortgage, rent never ends. There's no payoff date. No ownership. No finish line. This is where homeownership gains one of its biggest advantages. Housing costs eventually stabilize. Rent generally continues forever. The assumption that changes everything. The renter-investor strategy only works if the renter actually invests the difference. Every month. Without fail. Through recessions, crashes, and market volatility. Marcus succeeded because he invested consistently. Many people don't. Instead, they spend the extra cash flow on better apartments, newer cars, vacations, lifestyle upgrades. Once the money is spent, the investing advantage disappears. Homeownership creates a built-in savings system. Every mortgage payment builds equity automatically. That psychological advantage is difficult to calculate, but it matters a lot. To be fair, buying isn't perfect. Risk number 1: long break-even period. When you include closing costs, selling costs, mortgage interest, maintenance, taxes, insurance. Homeownership often needs 5 to 7 years before it begins outperforming renting. Sell too soon and you may lose money. Risk number 2: reduced flexibility. Renters can move easily. Homeowners usually can't. Relocating for a job becomes more complicated. Risk number 3: concentration risk. Marcus owns pieces of thousands of companies. Jake owns one house in one market. If that market struggles, his wealth suffers. Risk number 4: liquidity. Marcus can sell investments quickly. Jake can't sell 5% of his house during an emergency. Accessing home equity often requires borrowing or selling. Buying usually wins when you plan to stay 7, 10 plus years. Mortgage payments are close to rent. Home prices are reasonable. The area experiences steady appreciation. You value stability. You want a built-in savings mechanism. Under those conditions, buying can be extremely powerful. When renting wins. Renting often wins when you may move within 3 to 5 years. Home prices are extremely high relative to rent. You need career flexibility. You prioritize liquidity. You consistently invest every dollar saved. But remember, the investing must actually happen. Without that discipline, the advantage disappears. The real answer. What if the best answer isn't renting? And what if it isn't buying? What if it's both? You could buy a duplex, live in one unit, and rent out the other. You could own a home while aggressively investing in index funds. Personal finance rarely rewards all or nothing thinking. Often the best strategy is a combination of both. After everything we've covered, there is no universal winner. There is only a winner for your situation. If you stay long enough, buying can become incredibly powerful. If you invest consistently and value flexibility, renting can be just as powerful. The biggest mistake isn't renting. And it isn't buying. The biggest mistake is making either decision without understanding the numbers. So ask yourself 2 questions. How long do I realistically plan to stay? And if I rent, will I truly invest the difference every month? Answer those honestly, and you'll already be ahead of most people having this debate. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Are you team rent, team buy, or somewhere in the middle?